Welcome everyone to the Your Fielder's Choice MLB Pre-Lock Live Show. I'm your host, Devin. Today is our special edition cheat sheet preview. Typically on these shows, we go over each position, the plays we like. We're going to do things a little bit different today. We're going to be taking a look at the cheat sheet, position by position, what you're looking at on the cheat sheet. So you can see it on the screen here on the stream. We're on the Pitchers tab here at yourfielderschoice.com. As you can see here, you can see when it was last updated. That's going to be really important because I'll let you guys know, hey, I updated the cheat sheet. And typically you'll see about 15 till lock, 10 till lock, sometimes even as close to 5 till lock, depending on lineups. I may update that final time. So again, that's a good way. You got your timestamp here to see exactly when it was last updated. So starting with pitcher, we're going to go over some of this data. It is important to note that we literally just got a scratch. Zach Gallen has been scratched. I'm not sure officially. Let me see if we got a replacement yet. Looks like Cody Poteet is starting, a righty. Again, we will update the cheat sheet. That will be accounted for. And one of the really cool things before we get into this that's really important for this cheat sheet is the fact that it is based on handedness, and it's based on handedness of the opposing team for the pitcher section. So what we're seeing here from Garrett Cole, 42%, is based on the lineup that Tampa Bay is running out, which their lineup is out for this update. So this is based on the fact that Garrett Cole's a righty. Tampa Bay is rolling out 5 righties and 4 lefties. So this number is based on the Tampa Bay righty to lefty mixture. It's not just a flat number. You're not going to see that anywhere else. That's why the updates are important as well, because as lineups come out, I update the cheat sheet. These numbers will change just a little bit because it's taking into account the final lineups. So what we're seeing here, just to kind of go through things here, obviously you've got your player name, you've got your pricing, FanDuel, DraftKings pricing, team, hand, that's obviously the hand that they pitch with. Then this is where you get into the player data. K%, again, this is based on the opposing lineup. If that opposing team's lineup's not out, it's going to be based on the projected lineup. So it will be, again, updated. Very cool aspect that we do that other people don't do. Other people are just going to give you the generic stats, and that can work to an extent. But if, say, Garrett Cole again, say Tampa Bay was to run out an entire lineup of lefties, it's going to be important because his stats may be a little bit not reflective as to what Tampa Bay is rolling out. So that's why we do it like that. Again, nobody else really does that. So that's one of the big features here that I'm really proud of that we were able to build in. So moving on, we obviously got the K rate, walk percentage, innings pitched, WOBA, and ISO. Again, these are based on the walk percentage, K, WOBA, and ISO are based on this Tampa Bay lineup. So this 248 is based on Tampa Bay's lineup of the 5 righties and the 4 lefties. Same thing with this ISO here. Moving over, we've got the opponent data. Obviously, Garrett Cole is facing Tampa Bay. This is the Vegas total for the opposing team. So, and the reason I do the opposing team is because in this case, Garrett Cole, Tampa Bay's got a low total. That's a good thing. We want that to be low. So that's obviously a good thing. I just jump around to a different screen. Mickey, you lost my stream there for a second. There we go. We're back. Okay. So we got the opposing data, and this is the same way. This team data is based on their final lineup facing a righty. So it's averaged out between the players actually in the starting lineup and what their numbers are against a righty. So again, it's very important because we're not just using generic stats. We're using the final stats based on the opponent. So for pitching wise, these numbers, the lower the better, because that means that opposing team has poor lineups or has poor numbers as a lineup. So same thing, WOBA, this is team WOBA, team ISO, team K%, all based on facing a righty and based on their final lineup. And then of course we've got projected ownership, FanDuel, DraftKings. This play style over here is simply based on, what I base it on is ownership and pricing. So like you can see here, Max Fried is labeled as a DraftKings value. That's because he is 8K on FanDuel, which I consider a cash play, but he's under 8K on DraftKings, so he's a value over on DraftKings, hence the DraftKings label. So for cash games, what we're looking at is we're looking at this projected ownership. DFS has really morphed over the years. It's all about chalk now. It's all about nailing projected ownership. So for your cash games, what you're looking at is you're starting with that projected ownership. So we can see tonight, Garrett Cole is going to be chalky. It's plug and play. If you don't play him in cash, you're taking a massive risk. And then from there, we can see, most people are going to pair him with Woodruff if they can get there. Julio and then Gallen now is off the board. So obviously that, take him away. I'm sorry. And I gave you the wrong name. Seth Frankoff is actually who's starting for Arizona now. I'm sorry. I said Cody Poteet, but I was looking at the wrong side. So anyways, you can ignore that. But so when you're looking at this for cash games, when you say these guys were all at 35 to 40%, that means they're all going to see a little bit of ownership. You don't necessarily always have to just plug in the top two and move forward. If it's a massive gap like we see with Garrett Cole tonight, that's a chalk play. Plug him in, move on. Most likely Woodruff's going to be really, really chalky as well. We can see a pretty decent gap here as well. But, if you're building and you hate your lineup with him, you could come down here. The gap here is not that big. But what you don't want to do in cash is you don't want to play Garrett Cole and Justin Dunn. You're taking a really big risk. If you do something like that, you have to nail that play. There's zero room for error. So just keep that in mind. If you want to go low owned at a spot, just understand that your room for error is very, very, very small. Yes, it actually has changed to Brent. It actually just changed to Peacock. I have the same thing as well. So we've got Cody Poteet versus Matthew Peacock in that game. So probably see the Miami total climb up as well, obviously. And Justin Dunn is a decent prospect. Hasn't quite put all the tools together, and he has a pretty brutal matchup tonight. But Justin Dunn's hopefully going to be a decent pitcher. So that's what you're looking at for cash. So now I get the question all the time: what am I looking at for GPPs? GPPs, you want a guy with K upside, so you can come in. You can sort by these columns. I can come in, sort by K percent. So here's a really good example. You got Colin McHugh coming in here. He's got a high K rate, and he gets a New York Yankees lineup that has a high K rate. That makes him a really strong GPP play. Obviously, anytime a Tampa Bay pitcher, though, you need to look into his innings pitch. But that's just a good example. Same thing, Julio here. If you're not going Woodruff and Cole, if you're going those two in cash and you want to change it up, you can go Julio here. He's got a decent K rate. Seattle's got a high K rate. You can also, to do it the other way, you can sort by the opposing team's K rate as well. So that's you really want that K rate for upside from your pitcher. So, you can come in and sort by some things. You could look at the opposing matchup and see, like that LA lineup today, for instance, is really, really bad. And you can see that's a terrible WOBA. That's very low at 277. They have the lowest WOBA and lowest ISO on the slate. So, you can come in here and play Jose Urquidy as a GPP play. So that's how you're using this cheat sheet. Cash games, you're coming in, you're looking at ownership first. Again, if you don't have a massive gap, that means, a lot of these guys are in play. You can tinker around with your builds. Utilize our top plays article to help you decide on that. Some slates, though, it's just going to be straightforward and chalk like we have with Garrett Cole here. All right, let's move over to the positions now. Same general concept, but we'll go through it here. So we've got obviously player name, player pricing, player team. Now this Vegas total is the hitter's team. With a pitcher, it was the opposing Vegas team. With the hitter, it is their Vegas total. So again, high Vegas totals are good, especially for cash games. GPPs, you don't need to worry about it as much, but Vegas is paid to be smart. So that's the spot that any DFS player is going to tell you to start with is Vegas totals. So that's why that's on there. Order is where they're batting in the order. Typically, especially cash games, you want to try to stick to that top 5 because the numbers will show you that your top 5 batters are going to get on average an extra at bat from your guys 6 and below. Just the way the math works. So that's why you're targeting that. You can see all our high projected guys for the most part are towards the top of the order. Then we have the hand here. That's the hand of which the batter is. And then the verse left or right is the opposing pitcher's handedness. We have our opponent, and then we have these player stats. Again, this is based on this batter's stats against a righty. So Sal Perez, really good numbers, 413 WOBA, 280 ISO. This little rank number you see here is a 100% stat-based number. I don't touch a thing on that. It is based on the hitter stats and the opposing pitcher stats. So that's just a little thing you can use if you're, kind of stuck up on some guys. You can utilize that rank as a way to act as a tiebreaker. You can also utilize Vegas totals as a tiebreaker. Pricing can dictate that, etc. And again, we're looking for big gaps here. 27's fairly high. If you can get up to Sal Perez, this is suggesting you're going to want to check back and see if that number drops a little closer to lock. But so that's what we're looking at here. Over on FanDuel, you can see it's really important to pay attention. FanDuel, we've got Max Muncy coming in laughably underpriced at 3.2K compared to his 5.5 on DraftKings. Hence why he is so projected high. You can see he has a really nice rank as well. So again, same concept as pitcher. We're looking at that projected ownership first. And then if you're stuck up on some guys, you got guys all pretty close to each other. That's where you can utilize things like their stats, Vegas totals, how higher they are in the order. If you have the time to put in the research, taking a look at logs is never a bad thing. Player X hasn't had a hit in a week. Same price, player Y is hits in 5 straight. So that's why taking a quick look at logs is never a bad idea either. Take a look at our MLB top plays. That's going to help as well. GPPs. Typically what I like to do is I personally am a big ISO guy. ISO is power home runs. Home runs is your highest upside. Guy hits a homer, he's having a good day. So I typically like to come in, sort by ISO. So come in, I see Will Smith here. High total over 5. Gonna come in low owned. He's got a really nice ISO. That's a really, really nice GPP play. It's expensive, but he's got all the things that make him a really nice GPP play. He's high up in the order, projected high up in the order. I don't believe that lineup's out. High Vegas total. He's got high WOBA. He's got high ISO. That makes for a solid GPP play. Mercedes as well. Another kid's an absolute stud. He's going to come in at very low ownership. This is a small sample size, but again, these are the kind of things you're looking at for GPPs. One other thing I should mention is, again, the play style. If I do get questions often, if it's labeled punt, is that person cash viable? Yes, I label it punt simply based on pricing. If they're below 3K on each price, I label it as a punt. That doesn't mean they're not in play for cash. That just means, they're super cheap. So thank you, Brent. I wasn't sure if that lineup was officially out. Yes. So Will Smith batting 5th. He's going to come in low owned. There's a lot there that makes sense. It's a really nice GPP play. So that's how I use the ISO for GPPs. That's basically the cheat sheet. We'll go through the other positions really quick. Just to look at some examples. So we can see here, this is a really good example. We've got all these guys, really nobody is jumping out in this top area. So really you've got about 5 cash viable plays here. And then if we look, we've got all of these pricing options as well. We've got, all the way up here to Witt. We've got all the way down to Colton Wong. So this is where, you can let the pricing dictate, maybe come back to this position, see where you land instead of jamming in Witt, who's going to dictate the rest of your lineup. Maybe hold off on the position, come back, utilize the value if you need to, or if you can get up to Witt. Obviously he's got decent stats. So again, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Vegas totals. Where are they batting? Their stats, especially when we get this, bunched up projected ownership. And again, you're going to want to check back a little bit later. These numbers start to separate themselves a little bit with that final update. But a lot of times you're going to see this. You're going to see guys bunched together. And those are the positions that can be really important to your builds and give you some flexibility. Over on FanDuel, though, again, it's really important to sort because look at this pricing discrepancy we've got here. 2.7K on FanDuel compared to 4.6. Those pricing discrepancies are going to drive ownership often. So you're going to see Escobar a fairly popular play on FanDuel because of that pricing. But you do have a Marwin here as well, coming in at 2.4K if you can't get to Escobar. But again, that's where you're looking at projected ownership wise. GPP, same thing. I'm coming in here. I'm sorting. You could take a chance on like a Brandon Lau, for instance, but it's a brutal matchup, which is why we see the Vegas total so low. But that's the kind of things you're looking for. Again, for me, I'm looking for that power, home run upside, stuff like that. So let's move over to third. Let me check on questions really quick. Okay, over on third, this is one of those 3.1K for Alec Baum. This number's not surprisingly well ahead of everybody else. Very affordable, batting fifth for Philly. Nice Vegas total. 340 and 200 are kind of the numbers I look for in cash. Above 340 for Woba, above 200 for ISO. He's got both of those. Makes a lot of sense here. Come over on DraftKings though, or come over on FanDuel though. And again, we've got Escobar who has that third base eligibility. Justin Turner comes in almost 3K less on FanDuel. So that's why you're seeing the projected ownership here. So if you're FanDuel, make sure you're sorting. It's really important. GPP wise, perfect example. Alex Bregman is going to come in technically probably under-owned for his upside. He's got massive stats. 455 Woba, 337 ISO against lefties. Just perfect GPP play. Again, he's expensive, but this is where is Rios officially starting? No, he is out. That's why you want to look at that stuff. All right, let's finish out the last two positions quick here. We've got Corey Seager. Again, this isn't a big enough gap where if Corey Seager is dictating my build to the point where I don't like the guys around. As of now, this isn't a big enough gap that be overly scared to jump down to Jose Iglesias, who's batting second. Yes, it's an ugly LA lineup, but he's still batting second. He's in between Ohtani and Walsh, who are having good seasons, coming in at just 2.8K. The stats aren't great. Vegas total isn't great, but when you're punting like that, it's a logical punt considering where he's batting. So that's why just one of those situations again. Now, if Seager climbs up to 30 and Iglesias stays at 16, then you're going to want to play Seager. But when it's a close gap like this, you do have that little bit of flexibility. So I just want to point that out. GPP wise, again, we've got Tim Anderson is a guy that actually Pete really likes for cash. You can see why. 405 Woba, 243 ISO. Just a beautiful GPP play. He actually has some BVP as well today. So, and then when you're doing these two, you're going to notice a lot of times it's the expensive guys that have the high ISO. But, a play like Didi or Nick Ahmed are the nice lower owned value options that you can get that actually have the stats that nobody's going to play. All right, let's round things out with outfield here really quick. Again, we've got a big bunch here. You've got all sorts of pricing that's going to give you that flexibility to make what you want. So what I like to do, again, when positions are like this, kind of utilize these positions, tinker with them a little bit, come back to these positions. This is your general target area. You're still looking at these guys, Tim LeCastro over Ward. Yeah, he's more expensive, but he has the much higher Vegas total. Now, if the Ward ownership climbs up a little bit, then he would be in play as well. But you're looking at this general area. And again, you've got all sorts of price ranges. You got all the way from punt to value to mid-range to top tier. So that's how you're using that projected ownership. FanDuel, sort by FanDuel, we've got Mookie coming in just entirely too cheap at 4.1K. Nice stats here, nice Vegas total. FanDuel's very, very cheap on Dodgers, so you're going to see them pretty high owned. Same thing here, though. You've got really FanDuel's probably going to be fairly chalky because of their pricing. Bryce comes in a little bit too cheap. Jorge Soler is way too cheap at 2,500. So GPP wise, coming in, Jordan's another really good example of a GPP play. Again, comes in expensive, but that's the type of GPP upside you're looking for with that ISO. Lord Scurial, I love the dude against lefties. You can see the numbers, lower Vegas total, so he's going to come in super low owned. Soler's a cash play, so you can see you can mix those guys in. But yeah, that's the cheat sheet. That's how I'm utilizing it. That's how I suggest utilizing it. Does anybody have any questions before we hop out of here? We are just waiting on the Seattle lineup officially, which Seattle's a GPP only play, so that's not very important to cash. Matthew Peacock is officially starting. The Miami Vegas total has already shot up to over 4. They are John Birdie's batting 5th, so we may see him enter the cash conversation at just 2.7K. The other guys are all over 4K, so nothing crazy there. We've got Dodgers all expensive. Sorry, just trying to look over these lineups really quick. But yeah, so that's really it. It's pretty straightforward, especially when you get a feel for it. So we're going to try to do videos like this about once or twice a month. So I appreciate you guys checking out, following along, and we'll catch you next time.
At the bottom of the ocean, I'm at the bottom of the sea. At the bottom of the ocean, don't know if I'll make it back home. At the bottom of the ocean.